Alicia says, is a bilirubin reading of 10 high for a non-drinker?
A bilirubin of 10 is high for everyone. It shouldn't be above 1. Or is it 10, 1.0, or is it I don't know, maybe the lab. But yeah, from my lab, 10 is really high. 4 is kind of the limit of high. But I always expect it to be around 1. So yeah, if it's 10, you're probably already getting yellow eyes, yellow eyeballs, turning yellow. I had a guy that had hepatitis, and he was just bright yellow. He was just like neon yellow. His eyeballs were yellow, the whites of his eyes, and his skin was all yellow. He was just so yellow. And he came into my office one time wearing, like a golf shirt, a yellow golf shirt, and yellow golf pants. And he was just the yellow man. It was so funny.
Oh my goodness. Okay, let's see. They were asking about drinking, and now we're going to move to marijuana. How does marijuana affect the program and diabetes? Other than getting the munchies, Peter says, is it a bad idea if you can control the munchies?
Yeah, well, if you control the munchies, that's probably the worst thing. The benefit of it is like marijuana, CBD. If it lowers your stress level and decreases the adrenal output, and it'll make you less insulin resistant, so you have more insulin sensitivity. So I don't know of any research on that. That's just off the cuff stuff, but consider the possibility. I don't.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Fixed Blood Sugar webinar. It is another beautiful Wednesday today, and I'm happy that you guys are all here. We are going to be chatting about type 2, just like we do each week. And today we're actually going to be talking about the thyroid as well. So lots of fun stuff. Dr. Saunders is going to share his wealth of knowledge on this topic. And then the last half will open up to questions like we always do. So those of you on Zoom right now, if you see that Q&A area, that's where you can ask your questions. And we will do our best to get to as many of those as possible. But as things come up, when Dr. Saunders is teaching and sharing, or if someone's asking a question and you have another question that relates to it, feel free to start filling in your questions there as we go. And I'm going to do my best to monitor those. If you're on Facebook, you can post those there as well. I'll do my best there. I don't think Joe's going to be with us today, but that's okay, because we're ready, we're excited, and we're going to have a full house today. So I think Dr. Saunders even told his mom he was going to be on, so she'll be with us as well, right? Where does she live?
She lives in Idaho, Boise, Idaho, but she's visiting me now in California.
Oh, she is. Yeah. Oh, that's nice. We should have had her on.
Oh, that's true, huh? But she's at home.
Okay. All right. Well, we're excited you guys are here. Before we get started, I like to have Dr. Saunders. Actually, you know what we haven't done in a little while? You haven't told us a random fact about you in a while. Maybe something to do with your medical degree, or just some fun random information. I always like learning more about Dr. Saunders. So anything you can think of right now.
Well, when I was in college, I decided that I wanted to be a missionary. So I went to Venezuela, and I lived in Upata with the people that lived in Upata, which is a little town in the middle of the Amazon jungle, a little mining town. And it was really great. So I learned Spanish pretty well. And people ask, how do you speak Spanish? And how do you speak it so well? Well, it was 2 years of being a missionary in Venezuela. That was great. And it's really unfortunate. I've seen what's happened to Venezuela since. I have friends there, and it's really sad.
Wow. That's very cool. I didn't know that.
See?
I know. Every time. I also am learning. Actually, fun fact, I have a minor in Spanish from college, but using it. So now I don't remember anything.
Hablas español perfectamente bien.
Well, I'm using Duolingo now to relearn Spanish, which is actually really fun. I am really enjoying it, but it's true. If you're not, I mean, I'm in South Dakota, and so I don't get a lot of exposure. And if you're not, exposed to it often, you forget. So yeah, that's kind of one of my things that I'm working on. So anyway, let us know where you guys are tuning in from, because we just love to see where you all are. Someone here on Facebook, Kenny is here from Columbus, Indiana. Hello and welcome.
I just saw one come up. What's the best ice cream?
Really?
I'm gonna say no ice cream is the best ice cream.
That's hilarious. I did just see some keto ice cream, though. I will tell you that. It is funny though. We are a family that doesn't necessarily love ice cream, which I'm really glad about, because I know that lots of people love it. Oh, good. We got, okay, Marble Falls. Hello. Canada, near Austin, Utah, Texas, Washington, Missouri. Awesome. Hey, Butch, how are you? Okay, before we get started, Dr. Saunders, would you mind giving us a disclaimer today?
Okay, so the information that we're talking about here is general information. It's for the masses, so to speak. So it may apply to you, but it may not apply to you. So the idea is that you're getting some information, and when even when we're having you ask specific questions, I'm not going to answer in terms of you specifically, because I don't know your lab tests. I don't know your specifics. I'm going to answer still in general terms for general audience. So make sure that you're not taking that information and saying, well, Dr. Saunders said do this, and that may not be the right thing.
Right. All right. Thank you very much. Today, we're going to be talking about the thyroid, and I'm excited. I don't know that we've done a webinar on this. Maybe once. It comes up. We get questions. And so we're going to talk about type 2. We're going to talk about thyroid. Do they relate? What happens if you have type 2? How does that affect your thyroid? I don't know. We're going to learn it all today. Dr. Saunders is going to teach us, and we're going to get to some of your questions. So Dr. Saunders, take it away.
Well, I don't know that we're going to learn it all, but I'll go over some specific things about the thyroid that apply, generally. So about 15 years ago or so, there was a study done in the Midwest where they took young girls, and these were like teenagers, high school age girls, and they tested their thyroid, and 12% of them had goiter. Goiter is an enlarged thyroid due to a lack of iodine, and so the iodine problem is still a problem. 100 years ago, they found out that goiter, which was a common problem, was caused by a lack of iodine. So they said, how are we going to get iodine into people? Because it's not in the food, and people don't like eating seaweed, which is pretty much the only reasonable source of iodine in the United States, or in most of the world for that matter. So someone had the bright idea, let's put it in the salt. Everybody's got a salt shaker, and they're shaking salt on their food, and they're going to get iodine along with that, and then they won't get goiter. And so then, fast forward 20 years from the 30s, 40s to the 1970s, and then doctors started saying, well, don't eat salt. Salt's bad for you. No salt. And then they, after saying no salt, and then the salt people started using was kosher salt and Himalayan salt and sea salt and real salt. And guess what? None of those sources of salt have any iodine in them at all. So you go to a restaurant, no iodine in your salt. All your food's salted, but you don't have any iodine in it. And so people are saying, well, it's in the salt, right? I don't need iodine. No, the answer is no, it's not in the salt. So the fact that, 100 years ago, when they found out that iodine was needed to prevent thyroid problems, they brought up this solution, which was reasonable at the time, but then became unreasonable because now people think it's in the salt when it's not. In fact, if you look on, I had this Himalayan salt, ground the big one from Costco, and it says on there, this salt does not supply iodine, a necessary nutrient. So don't think that you're getting iodine. You're not. If you're not eating sushi and seaweed and nori and kelp, then you're not getting iodine. And goiters are still very common. If you think these young girls with, 12% of them having goiter already, which is an enlarged thyroid from a lack of iodine. And then other types of things show up. So for example, I had a woman, she was actually from China, but she came to the United States, and she started getting, when she came to the United States, she started getting a goiter, but in China, she didn't have it. So she had this enlargement in her neck. So she goes to her doctor. The doctor says, oh, you need an endocrinologist. So sends her referral to an endocrinologist. Endocrinologist, oh, you have goiter. This could be bad. We're going to have to do radioactive treatments. And she goes, I don't want radioactive treatments. Is there anything else I can do? Oh, nothing else you can do. So she lives with this. I see her 10 years later. Her goiter's huge. It's like sticking out of her neck. It's like it's obvious. It's not like, oh, a question, does she have a goiter? No. It's obvious she has a goiter. So I'm like, well, how much iodine are you taking? She said, none. I'm like, did they tell you to take iodine? No. If 10 years ago they had told you to take iodine, then you wouldn't be here now, because she was there for a pre-op for surgery to remove her entire thyroid gland. And then she's going to have to be taking thyroid pills the rest of her life, which isn't a big deal, 1 pill a day for the rest of your life, but you are dependent on that pill. You really do need it if they remove the thyroid gland. So just like this should be general knowledge that there's no iodine in our soils. And because there's no iodine in our soils, goiter is a common problem, and thyroid problems are common. And some doctors are even told, like this woman I was saying, oh, don't take iodine. That's bad for you. Okay, so let's establish this. Iodine is not bad for you. If you were to take 50 milligrams of iodine, let's put this in perspective. A normal amount of iodine is 50 micrograms a day. So let's say you take 1,000 times that much, 50 milligrams of iodine. Then the expectation, if you have a normal functioning, like your thyroid's normal, breast glands, all the glands that need iodine have all they need, then and you collect your urine for the next 24 hours, how much of that iodine are you going to excrete in your urine? 100%, or pretty near, like 99%. If you don't have more than 95% excreted in that next 24 hours, because they actually do a test to see if you have enough iodine in your body. If you excrete less than 95% of that 50 milligram, that huge dose, 1,000 times more than a normal dose, then they say you're iodine insufficient, you're lacking or deficient in iodine. With 50 milligrams of iodine, what happens? Well, your kidneys get rid of it. It's a salt, right? And it's just like potassium iodide is one of them, or sodium iodide is another one. You can get magnesium iodide, calcium iodide. I had a selenium iodide. That's what I take. I like it because I need the selenium and I need the iodine. So for me, that works really well. And it's just a salt, whatever you don't need. Okay, so let's establish this first. If you take iodine in, like, I don't know, a huge dose, whatever your dose is, then the iodine easily gets into your blood, and your glands go, well, your thyroid gland goes, oh, I need that, and starts taking up iodine. And then your breast glands go, oh, I need that. And then your other glands in your body go, oh, I need that. And then they take all they need, and meanwhile, your kidneys are going, okay, whatever's left over, we're getting rid of, and you excrete it out. So it never builds up levels to become toxic. That's the thing about iodine. So if you have a goiter, for heaven's sakes, take iodine. And then the other thing that they say is if you've ever had a Hashimoto's disease, and the doctor said, don't take iodine. And that was based on a study done in Japan many years ago, where they had all of these people that had Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which is an autoimmune disease. Iodine does not cause autoimmune disease. That's a totally separate issue. So because these people all had autoimmune disease, thyroiditis, which is an inflammation of the thyroid gland from an autoimmune disease, they measured their amount of iodine intake, and it was like 10 milligrams a day. So they said, oh, the iodine must be causing the autoimmune disease because they're getting a lot of iodine. No, for heaven's sakes, they live in Japan. In Japan, what do they live on? Nori, sushi, seaweed, kelp. You know, they're getting a lot of iodine in their diet because they eat iodine. They eat things that contain iodine. And everyone in the country is eating iodine. It's not just the people with this autoimmune thyroid disease. And then there was another study on people that had, in the United States, the thyroiditis, the Hashimoto's, and they were given iodine, and their thyroid levels went up dramatically, and they got palpitations of their heart and sweating, and they were hot. Why? Because they were deficient in iodine. So they have this autoimmune disease, this inflammation of the thyroid. They're deficient in iodine. All of a sudden, they flood the thyroid gland with iodine, and it starts making a whole bunch of extra thyroid hormone because it's being stimulated to do that. Now, if you just wait a few days, that equilibrates, it goes down. But no, that's not what the research said. Oh, look how rapidly that improved. So nobody with Hashimoto should ever get iodine. Okay, that's not true. Other studies have proven that that's not true. You can give people with Hashimoto's iodine. If they're deficient in iodine, yes, they're going to have a transient increase in their thyroid production. But that is transient. If they're not deficient in iodine, it's not going to do anything at all. It's not going to make any difference at all. So now let's talk just a little bit about this Hashimoto's, because a lot of you probably even have Hashimoto's, which is autoimmune thyroid disease. You're making antibodies against an enzyme called thyroid peroxidase, otherwise known as TPO. What that is an enzyme that requires an enzyme that's in the gland that's making your T3, your thyroid hormone, and it requires selenium. Selenium is a mineral that everyone is deficient in because it's not found in our soils in the United States, because we don't grow food on volcanic soils. Now, if you were to eat Brazil nuts, which are in eastern Brazil, volcanic soils where they grow, the plants do not need selenium. So farmers aren't going to put selenium in the soil, so it never gets replaced or anything. Plants do take up selenium, and then they make something called selenomethionine, and they just save it. So if plants are grown in high selenium soil, they will have selenium in them, and it's a very absorbable form, and it's really good for you unless you get too much, because you can get too much selenium and it becomes toxic. So there's an optimal level. Now, in the United States, since we don't have it in the soil, how do you get it? Well, if you were to eat Brazil nuts, yeah, that's one thing. And that if they're grown in Brazil, then you're going to get selenium. And it's a lot. It's like 50 micrograms in a single nut. So it's, one nut a day would be sufficient. The supplement dose is about 100 to 200 micrograms. So, if you were to eat 4 nuts a day, you'd get about what you'd get in a supplement. Why is selenium so important? Well, if there's no selenium in your TPO enzyme, it doesn't work. So your body is making the protein and saying, we're making the protein. Oh, no selenium, throw it out. So it throws it out. And then it makes another one. Oh, no selenium, throw it out. And it throws it out. And it makes another one. It's not working, throw it out. It throws it out. And so think of 100 trillion cells in your body all need thyroid, and they're all making this TPO, but you're deficient in selenium. So very few of them are actually working. So you're dumping this protein TPO into the not useful TPO into your blood. What does your immune system do? Well, the immune system, we always think of it as like soldiers marching on to war. They're going to kill all those bacteria and those bad viruses and wipe them out and get rid of them. Well, yeah, but it's better to think of the immune system as janitors. They're cleaning up is all they're doing. Yes, they're cleaning up bacteria. They're cleaning up viruses and all the proteins that they make, like spike proteins. But they also clean up your own proteins when you have excessive amounts of other proteins. So 100 trillion cells making a whole bunch of TPO, and the immune system has to clean it up. So what does it do? Well, it makes antibodies against that and starts cleaning up all the mess. And so you measure your levels and you got this really high level of antibodies. So, oh my gosh, I have Hashimoto's thyroiditis. This is horrible. Well, it's really not that horrible. It's just your immune system cleaning up a mess. How do we fix that mess? Well, the research has been done. Again, in Japan, these people with Hashimoto's thyroiditis, they gave them selenium. What happens when you give them selenium? Then your cells make the TPO. You got a selenium in there. Hey, it works. So they don't have to make another one. So you're not dumping tons of protein into your blood, and it just works. So they gave them selenium, and guess what? Their antibody levels dropped down, and in the same curve, down to normal. Like they had no more thyroiditis, no more autoimmune disease. So just like two simple things that everybody's deficient in can repair a lot of thyroid problems, iodine and selenium. So that's why I take selenoiodine.
Nice. This is good information. Guys, I did post a couple links. You can see our Barton iodine as well as Synachroma, which has the selenium in it. And many of you are already taking Synachroma, so good work. I did have a question. We do get some questions from people asking about testing. And do I test my T3 or T4 or what are all these Ts and these testings that people talk about?
Good question. Okay. So the basic panel of tests is going to be T3, T4, TSH. So T4 is the primary one that comes out of your thyroid gland, and then T3 is primarily made, some of it from the gland, but it's primarily made in the tissues. So T4 is inactive, and the way to look at it is this: T4 is like a reservoir. So up in the mountains we have here a reservoir of water, and you have to fill up the reservoir, and then the water can come through a pipe, comes down the hill to the city. And everyone in the city has a faucet, and they can turn on their faucet, turn it off, turn it on, turn it off. And that's what all your cells are doing with thyroid hormone. So they have all this water which is like the T4 that's swimming around. You have this level of T4 that's always at right around 1. It's always there. And then when they need thyroid, they take some of that T4, they make the enzyme, and they convert it to T3, and then that's the active one. And so they convert what they need to T3. That they just turned on the faucet, and then they turn it off. So the T4 is your reservoir. That's a constant level, and then the T3 is whatever your cells or your individual tissues are needing at the moment. Now, that's your thyroid hormone, and that's really all you need to know from the thyroid itself. But there's one more that is the pituitary gland. That's the brain telling you if you have enough of that T3 and T4. It's sort of an indicator. Now, sort of an indicator means that it kind of tells you, like if it's low, it means you have enough or even too much thyroid. Because your brain is saying, don't make any more. It's shut off that TSH. So that's thyroid stimulating hormone. So it's kind of the opposite, where when the TSH is low, it means you have too much thyroid. When the TSH is high, it means you don't have enough thyroid, because that's your brain putting out this thyroid stimulating hormone saying, hey, make more thyroid. There's not enough here. And I've seen people, the normal ranges of like the TSH is like 0.5 to about 5. So anywhere in that range is considered normal. I think I try to keep people right in the below 2, around in the 1 range. Because when it's getting up into 5, that's the brain saying, you make a little more thyroid. But you have to look at the T3 and T4 levels and get them equilibrated too. So sometimes people will have high T4 and low T3. What does that mean? Well, it means they can't convert T4 to T3. So what do they need? Selenium. So start with that. That's a really simple thing. Some of them have low T4 and low T3. What does that mean? Well, they might not have enough iodine. So start with that. Again, we're back to the same kind of situation. So that kind of gives you an overview of the 2 thyroid hormones, one inactive, T4, and the active, T3, and then the TSH, which is actually the brain.
Wow, this is good. I love the visual of this. I'm in South Dakota, so I was envisioning this little reservoir in the Black Hills and the water coming down. And so this is good. This is how my brain works. This is why I appreciate Dr. Saunders so much, because things make sense when he gives me visuals. And I found out he talks about the kitchen sink a lot, or I don't even know if he says kitchen sink, but that's how I visualize it. And so I got all these good things. This is good. Question from Olib. He says, do the parathyroids play any part in this process you are discussing?
Well, no, but not the part I'm discussing. That's a separate. So the parathyroid is a gland that is partially in control of the calcium the calcium levels in your blood. Calcium has to be maintained very narrow range. It has to stay in that range all the time, because that's what, contraction of muscles depends on calcium. There's a lot of calcium dependent processes in the body. So you need this constant level. And so there's actually a whole bunch of factors: vitamin D, calcitonin, parathyroid. So there's a lot of hormones that are involved in keeping your calcium at a very normal level. Too much is really bad, and too little is really bad. So that's the parathyroid hormones. It's not the thyroid gland itself.
Okay. Iman says, does the A1C blood test include tests for a good thyroid and iodine level?
As a rule, no. It's completely separate. You have to get a thyroid panel. And so if you want to do the full thyroid panel, so that I told you the basic thyroid panel is T3, T4, TSH, but the full thyroid panel will include iodine and the TPO antibodies and thyroid globulin antibodies, and a thyroid receptor antibody. So sometimes people make antibodies against thyroid receptor that the antibody is stimulating the receptor, but you don't have any thyroid hormone. So so there's a full panel that has it. If there's some thyroid disease, you may be looking for the big panel.
Very interesting. Okay, good stuff, guys. Okay, great questions. Keep them coming. I'm gonna go ahead and just do a few here. Alicia says, can a C-peptide reading of 0.02 ever be improved? Let's discuss what a C-peptide reading is.
Okay, so C-peptide, excuse me, is the amount of insulin that your pancreas is making. So it gives you an overall sort of, at least within a short period of time, because the C-peptide doesn't last a long time, so maybe hours. We're not talking about days, we're talking about hours. Kind of giving you an average of what the gland is putting out, because the pancreas it has like minute to minute changes And the C-peptide gives you a sort of an average of that over maybe a couple of hours. 0.2 is a very low level. It means your pancreas is making some insulin, but not very much, and probably not enough for you to function. However, there are things to consider with this, and that is, if you're taking insulin and your blood sugars tend to be low, then your pancreas is going to be shut off and you're not going to be making insulin. So if you're taking insulin and have low blood sugars or normal blood sugars, then that 0.2 might be okay. So if you take away the insulin that you're making or allow the blood sugars to go up, you might see your pancreas kick in and start making more insulin. So then your C-peptide would go up in that case. The other thing is to consider that there's a lot of changes going on continuously in your blood sugar. If your set point for sugar is in the high range, 200, your blood sugar is always, 150 to 200 or something like that. And then you bring it down to a normal range like 100. Then your pancreas says, whoa, that stops making insulin. And if that's the case, then yes, it can be brought up. So depending on what the issue is, the C-peptide can go up and improve, even if it's low when you first look at it.
Okay, Alicia is wondering if Himalayan salt is okay to use.
Oh, it's wonderful. I love it. I use it all the time. That's but it doesn't have iodine. That was my point. Yeah. Yes, it's okay to use Himalayan salt.
Okay, let's see. I believe this is Charo, or I'm not sure how to pronounce this, on Facebook. What if the iodine is absorbed through the skin? 1% iodine solution 2 times a day for 7 months. Would the body still get rid of it if the iodine is not ingested?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, either way, however it gets into the blood doesn't really matter that much. So some is absorbed through the skin, and people sometimes do that. They'll put a patch on their skin, or like we have the magnesium, called magnesium oil, the spray. And the magnesium is absorbed through the skin. But however it gets into the blood, it doesn't matter. Eventually, it's going to go through the kidneys, and the kidneys are going to go, well, we got plenty of that, so we get rid of it. So kidneys will get rid of it either way.
Okay. And then what about Graves' autoimmune, which is hyperthyroidism?
Yeah, Graves' autoimmune. I didn't want to go into that. That's a little more complex. I just gave you some simple ones. So Graves' disease is an autoimmune disease of the thyroid gland making antibodies against the gland that causes you to put out a lot of extra iodine, and so, or a lot of extra iodine, a lot of extra thyroid, and so it'll make T3 and T4, and so it makes you hyperthyroid. So you end up with like jitteriness, shakiness, nervousness. One woman told me that she felt like someone was pushing her all day long, pushing. That's the way it feels, and sweating and hot all the time. I had somebody that was a chef, and he was this like big, rather overweight, jolly chef. And one day he came in. And I didn't even recognize him. He was this skinny guy, red face, eyes popping out of his head. And I'm like, dude, what happened to you? He had Graves' disease. I just lost all the weight. Anyway, he was kind of miserable. So the question then is, what do you do about that? Do you give iodine? Iodine's not going to fix the problem. I've read some books on that where they say, yeah, for Graves' disease, you need iodine to fix the problem. No, what you need is an autoimmune program. So autoimmune diet, you can do the autoimmune paleo diet. That one I've tried on several people, that's okay. But you need an autoimmune diet to get things to get the antibody levels down so that your gland can start functioning better again. One important thing that I can add to that is vitamin D is essential. You know, they've done several studies now that show that people with good levels of vitamin D, and I'm not talking about borderline like 30 on a blood test. I'm talking about the blood test being 50, 60, 70. The autoimmune diseases are significantly less, significantly lower. And so one important thing to both prevent and maybe even treat those autoimmune thyroiditis would be to make sure you get enough vitamin D, as in dog, like a lot, like 10,000 a day. So if you're looking at like Synachroma has 5,000 in one capsule. So if you're getting like 2 capsules a day, that's 10,000. That's a decent amount of vitamin D, because you want it on the higher side to improve the cellular immunity, so you're not making all those extra antibodies.
All right, good stuff. I just was thinking we may need to do a webinar on vitamin D alone, because we have there's a lot of good stuff.
That's true.
That happens with vitamin D. So
It's amazing.
Okay. Marcia recently got a continuous glucose monitor.
Yay, I love those.
I really want one. I got a message, Joe.
Okay. So here you go, Leslie. I just called Costco today, and you can get one. It's like $85. Because I told everybody there were $2,000. Well, that was for the system, the Dexcom 6 system. Okay. The Freestyle Libre system. You just get the transmitter. You don't even have to buy the receiver, because you can connect it to your phone. And it's like $85 for a 14-day. It lasts for 14 days. So it's not that bad. If you think like $170 a month kind of thing. So that's an option.
Okay. This is good. All right.
You still have to have your doctor prescribe it though.
Okay. Well, it's good to know. Okay. Let's see here. I know I lost my train of thought completely. I was just excited for Marcia because she got the continuous glucose monitor. Okay. Here's a question that comes up all the time. Marcia is a regular intermittent faster, and she's noticed that her blood sugar rises in the morning and it continues to rise throughout the morning. Through research, she's learned that that's called the dawn phenomenon. But what she hasn't been able to determine is this something that I need to try to change, or is it not necessarily a bad thing?
Excellent question. Okay, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but if I can explain a few things. One is what the dawn phenomenon is. It is primarily an adrenal issue. Somewhere around 5, 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, your adrenal glands start putting out a bunch of cortisol. Cortisol makes you, number one, resistant to insulin, and number two, raises your blood sugar levels. So it's kind of normal for the blood sugar to go up. So as far as normal goes, that's within the normal, what would be expected. However, it is also an indicator of insulin resistance. So regular fasting, I don't know why you would have insulin resistance, but for some people, it is an adrenal issue of insulin resistance. So for example, a common problem would be like women with PCOS, polycystic ovary syndrome, have high levels of an adrenal hormone called DHEA. And that hormone, it's not the hormone, but the higher levels of adrenal output actually make you more insulin resistant. So these women with polycystic ovaries are more likely to get diabetes as well. So they can have irregular menstrual cycles and all that, but they're also prone to diabetes because of that insulin resistance. And so the dawn effect is exacerbated or made worse by that condition. Yes, it's normal in a way, but it also may be an indicator of some insulin resistance.
All right. Okay. Alicia says, do expensive systemic enzymes warrant their cost in relation to helping type 1 diabetics?
I don't know what the cost is, but um, um, if the enzymes are needed, I always look at the supplements in terms of, is that necessary? Is it needed? Because if it's not needed, then you don't have to use it. You don't have to take it. People come into me with grocery bags full of supplements, and okay, do you need that? Well, I don't know. Do you need that? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. So we start looking at, what do you need and why do you need it and that much? So we talked today about iodine, selenium. Guess what? They're not in the soil. You need a supplement. You need to get it somehow because it's necessary for and it's not in the Himalayan salt, right? So selenium. Let's see what else. Oh, and vitamin D is another one that you may need a supplement for. So in that case, yeah. Huh. All right, hold on a sec. All right.
Okay, no problem. Okay, guys, if you're new to the webinar, you may not be familiar with the Diabetes Solution Kit.
Yeah.
Yes, helping at his office. I should have had him. Actually, I can mute him. Oh, maybe not. Okay. Well, I'm going to quick show him the Diabetes Solution Kit. I just realized I could have muted you, but I didn't know what I was doing. So we do reference this a lot, guys. And so if you hear us talking about phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, this is what we're talking about. I have my edits all over this because we have gone through and made some small little edits to this. In fact, someone just asked a question about fiber. I got to find it. It's on, they asked it, Holly asked it on Facebook, and she said, what is the best way to get enough fiber and stay low carb? And so we talk a little bit about that. We added some new stuff into here, and I remember one of our comments is to go low and slow. I think where you're not starting with just a ton of fiber right away, but you work your way up. And we actually have a lovely fiber greens supplement with a brand new flavor that just came out, and this is really good. I will just tell you right now that it is a little sweet, but it is made with stevia, and Dr. Saunders is not a fan of things that taste sweet. And if you've been around, you know why. And that includes all of the sweeteners that are added in sodas and the sugar-free sodas, all of those sweeteners, because your body sometimes can't tell the difference. So if you've gone through the Diabetes Solution Kit and you know that this will work for you, it's really good. Okay, so there's my little chat there. But talk to us about fiber. How do we do fiber and stay low carb?
Fiber is found in a lot of things that are low carb. If you're eating nuts and seeds and broccoli, we have a whole list of foods in there that are called free foods. And those are free foods in that you don't have to even measure the carbohydrates. So if you eat celery, you can eat as much celery as you want, and you don't have to count a single carb. Probably because it doesn't have any, but besides that, you don't have to count it. And if you eat broccoli, you don't have to count that either. And those are high fiber foods. So we've included in there, just to make it easy for everybody, this list of free foods, and just say, you know what? If you need a snack, if you need to eat something, eat a free food. And that's going to have high fiber because we've purposely put them in there, things with a lot of fiber in them. And then so you can, revolve your dinner around the free foods and have, broccoli and pea pods and celery and onions, and you just, mix it all together and make a stir fry, and there you go. And it's all free.
I actually just found a bunch of easy frozen vegetables from Aldi that are like stir fry vegetables that are actually all low carb. So if you want to add chicken to it or whatever you want to do for those days when you need something fast, there are a lot of good options. I'm going to post a link to the fiber greens as well. Our whole team really likes this. For some reason, the link is like 4 paragraphs long, and I don't know why. So I'm sorry about that. Hopefully it works. Here we go. Nope, that didn't work. But that is an option as well, Holly. So I'll post that in a second. Let's see. Great question here. I feel like this is something that Dr. Saunders is exploring this year. I could be wrong, but I've heard him mention it. I usually know what he's gonna explore for the year at some point in January. I usually can pick up on it. One year he was vegan, I think.
Yeah.
One year, I don't know. Every year has a
gluten-free, I've done dairy-free, I've done, yeah.
He's very inspirational. This is very good. But here's the question from Ronald. Maybe Ronald has picked up on it as well. I would like to know what Dr. Saunders thinks is the best food intake as far as percentage of fats, proteins, and carbs, if your blood sugar is in the normal range, and maybe how we eat those fats, proteins, and carbs together.
Okay, yeah. So that's what I'm doing research on right now. It's called food combining. And we talked a little bit about it in a couple of weeks ago or a few weeks ago. And so there's only 3 things you need to avoid when eating: carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. Everything else is okay. So one of the things that you want is kind of low, to be as low as possible on the calories, right? And so a high fiber diet is the best way to go. And here's the funny thing: you can overdose on fats, you can overdose on proteins, you can overdose on carbohydrates, you can get toxic on all those, but you cannot get toxic on fiber. And there is no upper level. So as people eat more fiber, they get better, and then they eat more and they get better, and they eat more and they get better. And no matter, there's no end that we know of there's no, they call it the LD50, the lethal dose 50, where a lethal dose of 50% of people are going to die if they get this dose, that the LD50. There's no LD50 for fiber. So that's, as far as that goes, then you can do low carb by getting in high fiber. You can do low fat and high fiber, and you can do low protein and high fiber. And that's pretty easy to do. So then, having said that, of course you need fats, of course you need proteins, of course you need carbohydrates. But if you have smaller amounts of them is better than having larger amounts of them. And the fact is, you can't avoid them. So if you're eating broccoli, there's more protein in broccoli than mother's milk. You know, there's ounce for ounce. You can't avoid getting fats either. You can eat grass and you're getting omega-3 fats and omega-6. In fact, your omega-6 to omega-3 ratio is great. So you can't avoid getting fats. You also can't avoid getting carbohydrates. So you want to limit the concentrated carbohydrates, the concentrated fats, the concentrated proteins. So if you're eating, you know, French fries are concentrated fat and carb, you know, and then that's the next thing I want to talk about is, okay, so number one, avoid concentrated. So instead of having 6 eggs, for heaven's sakes, have 1, you know, and then mix a bunch of vegetables in it and have a nice omelet. Instead of having a 10-ounce steak, have a 3-ounce steak and make it a steak salad and cut it up and put it in your salad, or beans or something like that, where you're going to get fiber with it. And instead of you know, candy, then just avoid that stuff altogether. That like bread and with I don't know, pastries, stuff like that. Just better to avoid it. So then the next part was combining. How do you put things together? And it seems like if you look in nature, and this wasn't where I got my clue. I actually read a book called, what's it called? The Zone Diet. And then I started putting things together. So if you look in nature, you don't have high amounts of fat and carbs in the same food, in any food. You know, you have avocado as a fruit, right? Really high in fat, but there's hardly any carbs, almost none. In fact, we count that as a free food. And you get meat. Meat's got a lot of protein, and it's got fat, but almost no carbs. And so, you know, if you look out in nature, you don't find mixtures of carbs and fat in the same food. There's small amounts of fat in like grains, for example. Nuts have small amounts of fat, but the ones that are high in fat, like walnuts, are pretty low in carbs. So, that's pretty much the way nature works. And I'll bet there's a reason for that. I don't have all the research on it yet. I'm still looking it up, but it seems to me that a lot of the problems with type 2 diabetes is this mixture, this combination of fat and carb. So if you have French fries, already mentioned that, fat and carb, ice cream, fat and carb. That's what somebody asked at the beginning, said, what's the best ice cream to eat? And I was laughing because that's what I'm thinking. No, zero, because you want to separate your fats from your carbs. So if I suspect that if people ate even a lot of carbohydrates, because there's a book called Mastering Diabetes, and it's by 2 type 1 diabetics, wrote this book, and they said they're eating 100 grams plus of carbohydrates a day, and their blood sugars are easily controlled, injecting insulin, and they have continuous glucose monitors, so they know, boom, it's good. But they're not eating any fat. So they have a no fat diet, and this carbs, even those super high carbs, no problem. They can take it all in. So on the other hand, we have just the opposite. If you look in the diabetes solution kit, what is it? Man, you can eat fat, but you can't eat any carbs. And guess what? That works too. So I think if you were to separate, saying you can have fruit, vegetables, all the carbohydrate foods, breads and cereals and all that, but don't put fat on them. So when you have your baked potato, don't put sour cream or butter on it, just spice it. That's what I'm doing this year is the food combining, avoiding the fat with carbs. So I make my own granola because I have to, because there's so much fat in the other ones. So I have that in the morning with some coconut milk, which does have some fat in it. Maybe I should change that. Anyway, so that's the idea of food combining and not mixing that carbohydrate, fat, protein. It's not answering the question of how much of each one, because I think that's less of an issue. If you just eat a super high fiber diet, then I think the rest of it will just work itself out pretty well.
Okay. Good question here from John. How long does it take before I see improvement in daily blood sugar levels when using Synachroma? I take mine in the evening before bed. Okay,
John, I want you to quit taking Synachroma. That would be my first advice. Just stop taking it, because Synachroma you're not going to see any changes in your blood sugar, I hope, because the purpose for Synachroma is to provide nutrients that are commonly deficient that allow the body to use sugar properly. That's all it is. So all of your control of blood sugar has to come from your diet. That's what it needs to be that way. So if you're expecting Synachroma to lower your blood sugar, you're in the wrong place. You need to be in the book instead of in the pills. So there's nothing wrong with the pill, but you should probably stop the pill and focus instead on what am I eating that's causing my blood sugar to go up.
We find that a lot of people are looking for a replacement for their diabetic drugs. And this is what the replacement is. It's the actual plan. And so this is way cheaper. It's a
$20 book. I mean, come on.
If you don't have this yet, all jokes aside, if you don't have this yet, you can find it at bartonwebinar.com. It goes through how to eat, what to do. And guys, there are many of you on this webinar right now, because I've seen your names, who have done this and have significantly changed your numbers. You've changed your life, your lifestyle, and it works, guys. So this is what you want to do. This is the alternative. So, and I knew you were going to say that, but I just had to ask it anyway. That's the fun thing about being the person in the background. I can choose what we're doing here.
Well, Well, one day I'm not going to show up. You're going to have to answer all the questions yourself. So
I can't do that. I do know quite a few of the answers. Sometimes I do play like I don't, but most of them I do know. I've been around for a while. We're on episode like 170 something. So we've done a few of these. Okay. But these are such good questions, guys. Ooh, our friend Anku is on. Dr. Saunders, you and your team are doing extremely well with the weekly webinar. I always learn something new each time I come to the webinar. Go, go, go. Oh, we love Anku. He's so cool. All right. Alicia says, is a bilirubin reading of 10 high for a non-drinker?
a bilirubin of 10 is high for everyone. It shouldn't be above 1. Or is it 10 1.0, or is it I don't know, maybe the lab. But yeah, from my lab, 10 is really high. 4 is kind of the limit of high. But I always expect it to be around 1. So yeah, if it's 10, okay. If it's 10, you're probably already getting yellow eyes, yellow eyeballs, turning yellow. I had a guy that had hepatitis, and he was just bright yellow. He was just like neon yellow. His eyeballs were yellow, the whites of his eyes, and his skin was all yellow. He was just so yellow. And he came into my office one time wearing, like a golf shirt, a yellow golf shirt, and yellow golf pants. And he was just the yellow man. It was so funny.
Oh my goodness. Okay, let's see. They were asking about drinking, and now we're going to move to marijuana. How does marijuana affect the program and diabetes? Other than getting the munchies, Peter says, is it a bad idea if you can control the munchies?
Yeah, well, if you control the munchies, that's probably the worst thing. The benefit of it is like marijuana, CBD. If it lowers your stress level and decreases the adrenal output, and it'll make you less insulin resistant, so you have more insulin sensitivity. So I don't know of any research on that. That's just off the cuff stuff, but consider the possibility. I don't like the marijuana THC. I don't recommend people use it very often because of the munchies, and because I've had people get paranoia from it, and I've had a really difficult time working with people to overcome their issues if they've been on it for a long time. So it's sure. I don't know.
Okay, we did get a couple of requests for your granola recipes, so if you have it off the top of your head.
Oh my gosh,
I think this has happened before.
It's really simple. Okay, old-fashioned oats, just the rolled oats of the thickest kind that I can find, and I use gluten-free because my wife can't take gluten. And then I have molasses, and it's dark blackstrap molasses. So I take a whole bag of it, and then I dump like half a bottle of molasses in it, and I mix it up really well. And then I pour a bag, the Trader Joe's bag of chopped almonds, the sliced almonds, and I dump a bag of that in there. And then I get their coconut, and I like the coconut flakes, the bigger ones instead of the shredded, but the unsweetened coconut flakes, and I dump that in there, and then I put. Oh wait! Before I don't put the almonds and the coconut in yet. I put the molasses in, and then I spread it out on a cookie sheet and put it in the oven at like 125 degrees, and just let it. I have a convection oven, so I just let it go overnight, and it all gets hard and crunchy. And then I mix the almonds, a whole bag of almonds, and a whole bag, and it makes this the biggest bowl I have, fills it up, and then I just put it in a bag, and that's it. I'll usually put something sweet, like some raisins. I like the I like the tartness of the green raisins, so I use those a lot. And then the regular, what do they call, like the sun maple? I don't know what they're called, seedless raisins, whatever.
I think you made this for us on one of our trips.
Yeah,
I think a few years ago, but I do kind of remember it. Fun. Okay, guys, we already went 2 minutes past our time, so Dr. Saunders needs to go. He's got patients to see. So thank you again so much. We'll see you next week, Dr. Saunders.
See you next week. Bye.
I'm going to see if there's any of these questions here that I might be able to help with. Isn't the book going to be updated? So I should buy it again for the updates. The updates will be so small for you, Del. You already know a lot of it. The updates are, actually, I'll just tell you, we took out some information about the cream cheese, and some of it was good information, but it was a lot that we didn't need to focus on. For example, some cooking methods. We did take some of those out. Just because that's something we can talk about later, but we want to make sure we just have the basics in the diabetes solution kit. Let's see. What else do we take out? Some little stuff that I actually can't remember now. You'd think I would remember. Just some designing stuff. Dr. Saunders was just updating some information, I think, on testing, which we've talked about many times. Different tests that you can take. Yeah, you'll be fine. Whatever version you have right now, you're going to be fine. The only thing, the major stuff that we took out was some of the AGEs and the glycation stuff, which is good information, but we decided to not have it in this book. And I added some fiber greens information into the book, just where we talked a little bit more about fiber. And I think that's going to be it, guys. We didn't add any new recipes or anything like that. So just very minor adjustments. So if you have this already, you're totally fine. Nothing's going to be a big change for you. And if you're on the webinars, you already know a lot of it. Yeah, I think we took out a page also of just some of the food preparation stuff. So nothing major. Okay. Suzanne, it'd be nice to add a sample of a high fiber meal plan for phase 1. I agree. I agree too. I actually just got a book called, something fiber. Oh no, I'll think of it. I agree. It's something we're all kind of exploring. So in fact, I'm going to write that down. Maybe Dr. Saunders could even talk about that a little bit. A high fiber plan. Okay. Anything else on here? Sorry, guys. I'm just kind of slowly going through this. I don't have his recipe for the granola, if that's what you're looking for. I'm sorry. But guys, this is recorded. So we will post all of these on our YouTube channel. If you go to bartonwebinar.com, there's a link to our YouTube channel, and that's where we are posting all of these. So you'll be able to get the replay. This will probably be 171 or 172, I believe. Okay, I know there's some other things I probably missed. Keep in mind, if you have questions, you can always email support@bartonpublishing.com. We have a whole team of support that will be able to help you with your questions. Criselda, this is your first time. Glad to see the doctor is a human, right? I know. That is one of the things before we started doing this webinar that we were like, people got to know that this is real, a real person, and that Dr. Saunders actually does care. And yeah, we love the webinars too. It's been one of the best things that we've done. Okay. I think I probably can't answer a lot of these, so I will let him do that. Come back next time, guys. You can ask questions there, or again, email support@bartonpublishing. Thanks for hopping on. Each week we're here. This has been great, and I'll see you next week again. Bye-bye.